with regards to Santa Monica. That gets complicated, let's be real about it, because as you know, there's this thing called the municipal proprietor exception to FAA rules. That exception allows the city of Santa Monica, within this circuit, we're in the 9th Circuit, to pursue noise reduction strategies irrespective of their impact more broadly. There are other circuits, however, that have said that you can pursue other environmental mitigations too if you are the city of Santa Monica. The city of LA does not have that same jurisdiction over those issues. But we do have the ability potentially to sue the city of Santa Monica at the airport over the issues of environmental impact, and that could lead to the city of Santa Monica pursuing its remedies under this municipal proprietor exception. So in short, you know, right? So we have two different alternatives. We have the teamwork alternative, and we have the more adversarial alternative. My seconds are almost done, but let me say there's another piece to this. There's a legal piece to this, and there's a political piece to this. I have Mike Bonin is sitting in front of us. I'm very honored to have the support of both Mr. Rosendahl and Mr. Bonin in my race. Were I to be the city attorney, we would work very closely together on these issues, because in order to determine whether there's going to be the adversarial or the more collaborative approach, that's a political as well as a legal issue, and it requires our politicians to work with Santa Monica to try to figure out where that common ground is. But the noise, the particulates, and the lead, those impacts are real, and they need to be curtailed one way or the other. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm proud to be here today as the City Attorney of Los Angeles. You know, this is a very difficult question to answer, because just down the street, the City of Los Angeles has its own airport. And you can rest assured that whatever we do, the politicians know, and one of the reasons why it's taken so long to act, is that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. And so whatever we use in our argument against Santa Monica Airport in terms of legalities is going to be used against us at LAX. And so that's why you haven't seen a whole lot of push from the council outside of Bill Rosendahl. Bill, am I right or wrong? You're right. And right now we have a mayor that's in Washington, D.C. All he has to do, the mayor that backs Mr. Fuhrer also, that could drive over to the FAA and say, what the hell's going on here? The political solution to this is probably the best solution to this, but that's not going to happen, because you folks have been exposed for years and years and years, because the pragmatics, the dirty little secret in LA, is that we have an airport down the street that we have to be cognizant about. So what can we do? Well, there's a couple of things. If nothing changes, there are some changes on the environmental front, and I'll discuss that at the back end in terms of a solution to some of the environmental pollutions if we cannot get our politicians to move. But if we can get, and Bill, I'm hoping that you'll make a motion, it'll get seconded, and someone will tell us to take on the city of Santa Monica, because that little portion of Los Angeles, it may be preempted. There's a case out there called Tweed versus New Haven. Those of you who are legal guys can look at the site on that case. It's 52, Fed Sup 2nd, and I think it's a 261, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But I remember reading the case when you guys first came to me on this issue about the preemption issue on that little piece of land, what we can do when it's something encompassed in the aviation flight path. However, the city of Santa Monica has done some things that maybe opened the door for us to maybe go after what they do. That Fly Neighborly program, and Mike talked about their mitigation that they can use in terms of their own locale. Well, that's not unlimited. There's another case out there called Home Builders, etc. versus, and I don't remember the name of the other side, Livermore, City of Livermore. And that's an 18 CalApp case, CalApp 3rd, and that case basically says that there's an inherent limitation in the California Constitution on the use of police powers. What that says basically is that the city of Santa Monica can't just order something that's going to adversely affect its neighbors. There's a regional welfare doctrine. Now, you'll say, what the hell is the regional welfare doctrine? Well, we did it, and you just read about it in the papers up in Kern County. Remember when Kern County told us we couldn't ship our biosolids to Kern County and land farm them there? And they stopped it? Well, the adverse impact to the residents of the city of Los Angeles was so great that the court said, you can't do that. So if their neighborly flyover program causes impact to the city of Los Angeles, guess what? The regional welfare doctrine may be able to kick in and stop them from using that runway so it enhances the pollution to the city of LA and limits it to those neighbors in Santa Monica. That is the law. Now, all we need to move forward is our client to give us permission to take on the city of Santa Monica. We've done it before. You saw what we did with the billboards. I mean, at the end of the day, we're doing it right now with the high capacity gun magazines that could be preempted. We're not afraid of preemption. Is my time up? Okay. In any event, I'll be glad to talk to you afterwards about the environmental controls, and there's some things out there that are on the horizon.
Second question. The city of Santa Monica owns a piece of land that is in the city of Los Angeles and is part of the airport. What is the status of that land? Is it part of the runway? And if so, who controls it? What leverage do you think this gives the city of Los Angeles in getting changes to Santa Monica Airport in 2015? And Mr. Penmar first.
And how much time? Oh. Our preliminary research shows that piece of land is located within the operational use of the Santa Monica Airport, and therefore it may be preempted under state law from us going after that and being able to affect the operations on that piece of state land. But that doesn't preclude us, as I said in my opening here, preclude us from going after them. There is case law, and we've done it before. We've taken on things that we felt were preempted and won. And I think we can do that here. But again, you have to remember this is the political side of this question. The client, we are the law firm. The city attorney is the law firm. We are the sword and the shield. We defend and we strike. But we do it on behalf of our client. And our client is the city of LA, and our client has competing interests. Because whatever we strike with, you can be assured that someone down the road is going to strike us with that same sword on LAX. So our clients are very reticent. But Bill's not. Bill has been 100% behind you all the way.
It's all regional. It's all connected.
And so, and he's right. Regional welfare doctrine applies. And that's what we have to stick our hat on. And the good news is we've won in federal court on the regional welfare doctrine before, and we can win again. The question becomes is the act of Santa Monica in maintaining control over that act of police power? If it's not, then we have to analogize the dicta in that case to what is happening factually at the Santa Monica Airport in the presence of operational control. At the end of the day, we have a leg to stand on. In fact, we have two pretty good legs to stand on. What we need, though, in order to take this issue on in a courtroom is our client's permission to bring the action. That's how we operate in the city of Los Angeles. That's how the charter operates.
Let me answer the question quickly, directly, and then move on to another broader point. So at this point, the research I've been able to conduct reveals that it's really a tough question as to whether that particular piece of property is itself the leverage the city of Los Angeles needs. I want to address, however, a couple broader issues. You know, it's been said that because LAX has its own issues with the surrounding community, one has to be careful about how one addresses these issues here. But the situations are not identical. There are some similarities, but they're not the same. The proximity, you remember how these houses got to be so close to the airport in the first place? It's because Douglas had 44,000 jobs at the airport, and it wanted to have that area zoned for housing so that the employees could live close by. There is not that same closeness of proximity to the runways here as there at LAX as there is here. So I take the point that you ought to be careful what you wish for a little bit, but I don't think that, I think we can be much more creative than that because there are important distinctions. And although I have not yet seen a study of the environmental impacts on the surrounding community of Westchester from LAX, I would be willing to wager, given the nature of the flights and the nature of the fuel that's employed, that the elevated levels of lead and fine particulates that we see in this community are higher than they are in the area near LAX. I could be mistaken, but that's my instinct on this. So there are differences here. So where does that lead one to say? You know, in this race, there are some meaningful differences between the two of us, and one is I've been both a lawyer, and you can hear the legal background of my answer to this question, but I've also been a policymaker used to working collaboratively across jurisdictional lines. I mentioned earlier my work regarding the Santa Monica Airport when I was on the City Council. I worked with then Congressman Julian Dixon to change some flight pattern approaches to alleviate noise impacts on people underneath those flight patterns. In this case, it is a blessing to have Congressman Waxman, Senator Liu, Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Bonner, and others here. This is going to require an intra-jurisdictional approach to this question. We have to cross these artificial lines. There's some movement at the federal level that's necessary to happen, at the state level, and here in Santa Monica. It's political because we have to persuade Santa Monica to recognize its common interest, and it's also legal given the issues we've been discussing today. You want a city attorney who can hit on all those cylinders. Thanks very much.
Mentioned that if indeed we have an ongoing agreement, that it would be great to have a late table and dispute the table. So more specifically, so that Mr. James can answer that as well. If Santa Monica Airport continues operating after 2015, do you think there is a legal strategy of Los Angeles to pursue to get a more formal role in Santa Monica operations and oversight, such as a joint powers agreement?
Well, we only need to take a look at what is happening in Los Angeles in regards to some of the consent decrees that we've been involved in and how we've been sued and have been part of that. As any part of any kind of litigation that goes forward in this, part of that will be, one of the remedies would be being at the table to discuss the resolution of those cases. You know, in terms of and I didn't talk about this earlier, but in terms of the mobile source pollution that's occurring out there, there's a brand new technology out that's being employed in the port right now, and it's going through verification at the AQMD, and it's called Amex. And Amex is basically something that fits on the top of ships, and it's now capturing 98% of the NOx, SOx, PMs, and just recently the AQMD sent that back for another 80 hours of testing, and it's taking 18% of greenhouse gases on top of all that. So it's a game changer in more mobile source pollutions. Henry, you'll be interested in knowing this, that just on Friday, Thursday and Friday this week, the founders of the Amex technology were back talking to the Federal Maritime Commission, and they're talking about adopting this thing in every port in the country. It can be adopted to trains, and Metrolink is looking at it right now. BNSF and UPRC in the port are looking at it. And it can be adopted on the ground to jet engine revving up and starting up so that we can reduce on-the-ground taxiing pollution coming out of jet airplanes. So this new technology is on the forefront of changing how it works, but it's still not going to answer the problem of regional welfare. It's still not going to answer the problem of the operational effects of Santa Monica Airport. The way you're going to get that done is by making sure that there's a federal judge in the middle of these two cities making us sit down and work out a solution and getting our clients, our respective clients, to put us at that table. And that's the only way it's going to happen. I'm willing to work with the city of Santa Monica to try to find a solution so that we do not end up bearing the brunt of their pollution.
So let's talk about what a seat at the table means. If we were to want to have a position on the Santa Monica Airport Commission, that requires a charter change in the city of Santa Monica. That requires an election. So that may not be the precise avenue to pursue. What I was seeking as a city council member was at least an advisory position in that, on that commission. If there were to be a seat at the table in a different sense, I think there's more potential. And that would be in the sense of dealing with the 2015, the issue of the expiration of the 1984 agreements and what happens regarding 2015. Now, In that setting, while it's true we cannot direct Santa Monica to get us to participate, again, we have two avenues to pursue to create that leverage. One avenue is the potential for litigation, a remedy of which would be to be at the table. But another is what I mentioned earlier. You know, we have a city council member here, Mr. Rosendahl, to be succeeded by Mr. Bonin, who will have an opportunity to negotiate politically. But this is an issue that could require the effective intervention of our state legislators and our federal legislators, because it requires the opportunity for people to come to the table under the auspices of folks who have a regional approach to grapple with what the implications are for each jurisdiction. I would like to see the City of Los Angeles work closely with our state and federal officials and the City of Santa Monica before the expiration of the agreement in 2015 to create a framework under which we are all at the table to prevent the necessity for litigation. See, that would be the incentive for the City of Santa Monica, the potential for us suing, but let's preempt it by having a regional discussion about where we can all come together. And there is low-hanging fruit here, as you know. There is the potential closure of the airport, but there are things short of that that could be very effective, including limiting runway distance, which would limit the nature of the planes that could come into the airport, including dealing with fuel and parking implications at the airport, and also dealing with the composition of tenants at the airport. Those flight schools cause great hazard to people in the city of Los Angeles. They don't all need to be there under a new regime post-2015.
Mentioned already, but I'll bring that up again more specifically. It has been implemented and suggested by the City of Santa Monica, and it strongly recommends that prop planes turn south over Venice and east over Mar Vista. The FAA stated it is not concerned with this recommendation and it is solely a City of Santa Monica policy. The FAA has also stated that flight schools' flying patterns do not have to fly to the left on departure, and that in some places they do fly to the right. There just needs to be consistency in this, and really want to hear your thoughts on how this impacts the residents and how you can help.
That's fine. Thanks, Betsy. Well, I alluded to it a moment ago. You know, throughout this campaign, I've been going to neighborhoods throughout the city of Los Angeles, and many of you here have been participating with me in neighborhood meetings here in the surrounding neighborhood, talking specifically about this issue. So let's be real. I get the fact of how it feels to be under a flight pattern almost all the time. The noise, the other issues that we've already discussed, this is no way to live. It's easy for the city of Santa Monica to say, fly neighborly over those neighbors across our boundary, as opposed to flying neighborly over our territory. This issue is really of a piece with all the matters we've discussed. It's time for us to attempt to find a global resolution to these questions. The potential for litigation creates the opportunity for there to be some incentive on the part of Santa Monica to come to a table. Terrific political representation could lead to the same opportunities, so we balance the equation and don't only have the impacts be borne by people who live in Venice and Mar Vista. I'd like to see us pursue that approach. And I know that we have willing representatives at each level of government to bring folks to the table to try to achieve that result. Any of us in office needs to remember the reasons we are in office. In this case, the reason to be in office is to try to do something to alleviate quality of life deterioration underneath the flight pattern. And while it is true that a city attorney needs to be able to have the consent of the client in order to move forward, you can be a passive city attorney awaiting that consent, or you can be an active city attorney aggressively involved in trying to create that situation. So you have leaders who are inspired by the fact that they know that you have their back. We have common interests here. I look forward to working with the council members, with Congressmember Waxman, whom I've worked for many years, with Senator Lieu, all of whom support me in this race, to try to find ways to cut through the baloney and actually see some meaningful, concrete achievements for this community.
First and foremost, this fly neighborly concept violates the regional welfare doctrine. And that regional welfare doctrine can be codified at the FAA. And that's why we need our politicians to go to the FAA and codify the regional welfare doctrine, because it doesn't right now look at the balance of hardships. The ordinance right now, the supply neighborhood ordinance, and I don't even know if it's an ordinance, and I don't think that it's a policy. And so the question then becomes is, even does the regional welfare doctrine apply to policies? Because it does apply to police powers. So we need, one, to go after the FAA to change their law when it comes to the regional welfare doctrine, and to impose that on the party that is passing something that may affect a regional player. Secondly, when it comes to being proactive and going after the FAA, the City of Santa Monica, remember that my client is the City of Los Angeles, the mayor and the council. My client speaks to the mayor and the council. Although every one of you residents are the client, the mayor and the council are your elected representatives. And if we act as the city attorney contrary to what our client tells us to act, it's a violation of the professional rules of conduct. That's why Bill Rosenthal's motion in front of the council is very, very important to empower us to go after these people. But if we do, and if we get that motion, I guarantee you this, that we have a tremendous amount of success, because our victory in the biosolids case, City versus Kern County, is a great application of the law on all fours in this case, because the hardship to the city of LA versus the hardship to Santa Monica by the implication of the fly neighborly policy is out of balance. We are greatly more affected, and we should be able to win that case in court.
Everyone's on tight time schedule, so I'm going to put 3 questions into one. You can answer all of them. They're all relatively related. The first one, actually 2 of them come from the audience. Can the City of Los Angeles sue the City of Santa Monica for operating a public nuisance that adversely impacts the health of thousands of residents? Also, I think you both have kind of answered this, but I'll just state it again. If the FAA comes back with another idea to send jets and instruments over Santa Monica to reduce problems with LAX, will you support it? And then lastly, just what else, as City Attorney, can you do to protect Los Angeles residents from all the effects of Santa Monica Airport? So I know that's a lot, but touch on whatever you find. And Superintendent, you go first.
You know, as a young DA in the brand new environmental law section of the District Attorney's Office, the U.S. Customs Department seized a load of counterfeit lighters and then put them in a dump truck. And my chief deputy was in the DA's Office of Environmental Crimes Unit with me. Bill Carter's back there in the back. And he was the head of the environmental unit for the federal government and down here in LA and for the Justice Department. When I found out that they had illegally disposed of lighters and actually a land mover caught on fire, I sued the federal government for violating our law, 25189.5 of the Health and Safety Code. I sued and I prosecuted the Customs Department. I was taken to court, removed to federal court, and the judge said they can violate your laws with impunity and stand behind the shield of sovereign immunity. And that's exactly what will happen in this case if we try to bring a nuisance action, because they will just remove us to federal court and stand behind the preemption that you'll see in the Tweed versus New Haven case. They are preempted by operation of an airport, and we need to do something in that regard. And that's why going to the FAA and changing these rules to give locals more control is so important. We need to have a seat at the table. And the only way we are legitimately going to have a seat at the table is going to be somewhere where the federal government respects the power of the person that puts us at that table. And that's in a federal court, because federal judges are appointed for life. Federal judges don't care about preemption. They care about fairness. They want to do the right thing. And the federal government will listen to a federal judge because they know they have the power to bind their hands. And so what we need to do is we need to get our clients to give us the opportunity to get ourselves into federal court and seek an injunction from them controlling our lives. I'm out of time.
There are some elements of where we stand now that really bug me. You know, the FAA's own regulations require there to be a 1,000-foot buffer between runways and homes, right? Is that applicable here? No, right? So this is a moment, I think, when we need to take a step back and say, and that's just one example among many anomalies here that may sound like fancy legal issues, but they boil down to, what's my quality of life underneath a flight pattern where I'm suffering from adverse conditions relating to fine particulates or noise? That's where the action is. So, look, clearly, all these questions would have been answered a long time ago were they easy. But now we have a moment, I think. We're on the verge of 2015. We have elected officials who work closely with each other and cooperatively. We have a moment we're not going to get back, I think. We need to seize it. Yes, there are legal dimensions to this, and there are political dimensions to this. I've kind of reviewed in my previous answers the answers to each of the sub-questions that are here. I just want to sum up and say this. If we can get Santa Monica to find that common interest because of the adverse health impacts that their residents experience as well as ours in LA, maybe noise is not so much among them, but the other issues are, then we have an opportunity to work with Santa Monica to mitigate these problems. Because as I discussed, there is this municipal proprietor exception to FAA rules that allows a local operator to take action to mitigate environmental problems. That kind of collaboration, I think, has a lot of potential because the leaders in Santa Monica want to achieve the health benefits for their residents as well as we do. And that's where working with Senator Lieu might come in, and working with Congressman Waxman might come in, because both of them have jurisdiction that includes the city of Santa Monica as well as the city of Los Angeles. At the end of the day, litigation remains a possibility. It is fraught with difficulty, but we need to see if there's a way to preempt needing to go there in the first place, as I said throughout this discussion. You want a city attorney, though, who really gets the quality of life issue that's at stake here and is prepared to act on it. And I know my time is up, but look, we have a lot of partnership yet to come. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you joining us today. It's very important. I'm glad to hear your thoughts on it.
Great. Thanks very much.
Round of applause for both of them.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to read your bios really quick. They're very short. Don't do you justice at all. I just want to give a background on each of you, though. Congressman Waxman was born in Los Angeles. He received his undergraduate degree and his law degree from UCLA. He served in the California State Assembly for 6 years before being elected to Congress in 1975. He is a ranking member and former chair of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. He has been a very active environmental champion throughout his political career and is also very active with the Safe Climate Caucus. So I want to hear more about that. Council member-elect. Everyone knows Mike Bonin, but he is our council member-elect. He was born in Massachusetts and is a graduate of Harvard University. He previously served as the chief of staff and district director for Congresswoman Jane Harman, and is presently the chief of staff of our famous council member Bill Rosendahl. That is until, of course, he's sworn in on July 1st. Thank you for being here. And Senator Lieu. Senator Lieu was born in Taiwan. He did his undergraduate work at Stanford and received his law degree from Georgetown, and he holds the rank of lieutenant colonel.
Maybe someday.
Yes. That's not high enough. Yeah, exactly. In the U.S. Air Force, the senator served on the Torrance City Council and was elected to the California State Assembly in 2005 and to the State Senate in 2011. He is the chair of the Labor and Industrial Relations Committee, and it also sits on the Agriculture, Governmental Organization, Insurance, and Veterans Affairs Committees. He is the chair of the Select Committee on Air Quality. So we have a panel of environmentalists here, and I have very different questions for all of you, but we will mix them up a little bit. For me, I really would like to know, Senator Lieu, what have you learned about our state regulations for leaded gas, and is there a specific unleaded aviation fuel available, and what state regulations can we maybe use? I mean, I know you're working on this, and also federally it could have implications, so if you could start there.
Sure, thank you. Before I answer that, I do want to thank Congressman Waxman for his history of service to our nation and all the work he's done in the environment. I'm very glad he's here, and so thank you for coming. and excited to work with my friend Mike Bonden when he gets sworn in, and just want to say, Bill, you look great, and I'm very, very happy you're here. Specifically to that question, we looked into it. The state is preempted, like we are in many things when it comes to air regulations. So we are preempted from messing around with the fuel regulations as it pertains to airplanes. The FAA controls that. So we're going to do a resolution at the state to get the FAA to speed up the work they're doing on unleaded fuel for airplanes. And the FAA is, in fact, working on that issue right now. And let me sort of say, I have a very particular viewpoint on the Santa Monica Airport issue. I don't waffle. I think it is an inappropriate land use. And I believe...
All right.
So it is true that when someone buys a home near an airport, they get that they're buying a home near an airport. However, they don't accept the risk that in the last decade, this airport changed from a small community airport of propeller planes to a large airport that had massive jet traffic coming in. Especially after 9/11, their jet traffic exploded 18-fold, large jets, and that is not what the residents expected. And so when the Santa Monica City Council looks at the issue, I urge them in 2015 to not renew the lease because the land use has now become totally inappropriate. Since I'm getting a lot of applause, I'm going to stop while I'm ahead.
Congressman Waxman, the vast majority of your constituents on both the Santa Monica and Los Angeles sides of the border support closing Santa Monica Airport in 2015, or if that fails, severely curtailing its operations. The FAA is free to oppose these ideas. What can you do specifically to make sure that your constituents prevail if the FAA in fact opposes these two options?
First of all, I want to thank the Venice Neighborhood Council and the Mar Vista Community Council for co-hosting this event today. And you can see the three of us are not running for election because we don't have ties on. So we're more relaxed. And Bill is always running for office, right, Bill?
Always ready to talk. Next to that.
I've been involved in the Santa Monica Airport for over 10 years. I've represented Santa Monica. I now represent the LA part as well. And you share a lot of the same concerns that I've heard from people in Santa Monica about this airport. They're concerned about safety, they're concerned about the environmental problems and the noise that it contributes to, and the quality of life that's hampered by this airport being there. But the fact of the matter is there was an agreement in 1984 that nothing can happen to 2015. Well, 2015 is not that far away. And I think if you talk to the people in Santa Monica and the people in LA, there's a strong feeling about whether they want to continue that airport. The airport, that consent decree will be over, and it will then be up for discussion. My view is, since I represent people in Santa Monica and I represent people in LA, both concerned about this regional airport, that you all get a seat at the table. And if the prevailing view is to close the airport, let's move forward on that. And if the FAA and the prevailing view is not to close the airport, then I want everybody at the table to talk about how to mitigate all these problems, both in Santa Monica and LA. Thank you.
It has been suggested that the FAA would resort to federal eminent domain of the land at Santa Monica Airport, if that were necessary to keep Santa Monica open and operating. What role does Congress have over eminent domain in this situation, and how much of a realistic threat do you think that it is? Is there anything you could do via regulatory or legislative action to prevent it from?
Yes. Well, idea of eminent domain by the FAA is a huge and radical step, and I would urge them certainly not to take that step. The people here in Los Angeles and in Santa Monica should have a greater say over the land use, and that was what was agreed to have a deadline of 2015. If they move on the eminent domain, we're going to have to pull them back and pull the reins on it, because it seems to me that that has to be something that has to be discussed and worked through. And they don't have the veto power over everything else in the Santa Monica and LA area. I think it's up to the citizens here, not the FAA.
I'm going to ask this of Mr. Bonham, but as we learned today, it's, I think, every governmental agency can be involved in this. But Mr. Bonham, we know that you're carrying on the same policy as Mr. Rosendahl, advocating for closing the Santa Monica Airport in 2015. How will you proceed to make this a reality? And then I just wanted to let you know that I got one other card up here that was quite succinct, and it just says, when will this injustice stop? So with that, I don't know if all of you want to take a shot at that or how we come together.
First of all, thanks everybody for coming today. Thanks to Ted and Henry for being here. And I also want to thank Betsy, not just for moderating this, but also for her role in helping and supporting the community on this issue over the years. We have been very lucky since Mike Gordon took office that we have always had an assembly member who has been on our side, first with Mike, and then with Ted in the assembly, and then with Betsy. We have been very fortunate indeed. And it takes cooperation between all different levels of government to make anything happen on this issue. It's a complicated issue. The solution is complicated, but there's some truths about this that are simple. I get this issue. I live literally around the corner. Every plane you have heard here today, my partner Sean has heard while sitting at home on our deck. This is an issue that I feel very strongly and passionately about. I've lived in this part of the district for 17, 18 years now. I've been behind the scenes with a lot of elected officials and campaigns, and every time when a campaign started, I said to Mike Gordon, I said to Bill, I said to Ted, I said to Jane Harmon, you've got to talk to Marty Rubin, you've got to talk to the folks from CRAP and hear about this issue with Santa Monica Airport. There's a couple simple things that are true. The Fly Neighborly program is a joke. If I told my neighbor, my next door neighbor, that I had a Dispose Neighborly program that meant I was going to dump all my trash and garbage and recycling over the fence into his yard, I don't think he'd find that very neighborly. And I think that's the analogy with the Fly Neighborly program. I also got to say, you know, we need to talk with the FAA. We need to negotiate with the FAA. But I think it's important to say that in a number of cases on this issue, the FAA is, to put it bluntly, full of it. Right now, I have folks in Westchester and Playa del Rey who are being told by the FAA, being told bogus arguments about safety by the FAA in order to increase impacts on their community. But at the same time, as we just heard from the presentations earlier, we don't need a buffer zone here. We don't need a runway protection zone here because the FAA doesn't particularly care about safety if they can increase the impacts on the folks who live near this airport. And that's just wrong. The FAA needs to be consistent, and they need to deal honestly with people. So, the question is, when can this injustice stop? I want to see this injustice stop in 2015. I want to see that the lease agreements that Santa Monica has with the FAA terminates July 1, 2015. I want to be in office for 2 years, and on the second anniversary of Bill swearing me in, I want those lease agreements to be over. There's a way to do that. There's a couple different ways to do that. You know, Mike Fewer and Nooch were talking about the two different strategies we can use. We can use the strategy which is cooperative with Santa Monica to help them pursue ending those lease agreements. And we can also take a more aggressive stance, which is to challenge the Fly Neighborly program and to challenge Santa Monica and the FAA on the impacts that folks are disproportionately facing from noise and pollution in Los Angeles. I don't see those two things as being mutually exclusive. In fact, I think there actually may be some leverage we can gain by doing the more aggressive tactic. It actually may help us. What I would note and this is how we can begin to move forward on ending the lease agreements, is the Santa Monica City Council is meeting on Tuesday night, and they have an agenda that is entirely about the Santa Monica Airport. The subject of the lease agreements is not on the agenda, but they're going to be focusing on a number of different Santa Monica Airport issues. They will be hearing public testimony. I would encourage you to go. I would encourage you to get your friends who live in Santa Monica to go. And as part of public testimony there, urge the City Council to direct their staff in the coming months not to continue negotiating with the FAA. Let those lease agreements expire so that this injustice can end in 2015.
If Santa Monica were to begin litigating these actions with the FAA, what could you do to bring about a resolution of such a lawsuit that would achieve the options and the goals that our constituents need?
You've done that after 2015.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me take this on by suggesting, first of all, that we have elected officials who get along very well with each other, who work together in a collegial way. We represent different levels of government, the city government, the state government, and the federal government.
But my interest in this came when I first ran for assembly, and Marty and Joe Rubin took me on a walk, and we would go in and visit people's homes. And I remember I knocked on this door once, and when the person figured out why we were there, he said, "Hold on a second." And he went back in his kitchen, he came back, and he gave me this black ball. And so I looked at it, and I said, "What is this?" And so it was this black ball, and he says, "It's an orange." It was an orange from one of those orange trees, and the soot from the jets and so on had over time accumulated. And it was very clear to me that we had a problem here in terms of the environment, in terms of pollution that people were experiencing. I visited some of the homes that if you see some of these videos, you watch the jet exhaust blow into their bedrooms, into their actual homes. I walked the neighborhood actually to get votes for myself, and then I had to stop after about an hour because I just didn't, I got nauseous. And it was very clear to me that this is a problem, and everything that Marty and Joan and all the folks here that have worked on for so long, all their state resolutions, all the hearings we've held, all the studies we were able to get from the AQMD to other folks, it all leads up to 2015. This is the one leverage point that we have against an FAA that normally does not care. They will now care because there's actually a legal document that says, hey, if you don't start paying attention to us, we're just not going to renew it. My hope is that Santa Monica, the city, does not renew that lease, and that would solve a heck of a lot of problems. Thanks.
I have an interesting one for Congressman Waxman. It says, can you give information on U.S.-China Aviation Cooperation Program, ACP's training of pilots? Nothing you can do? Okay, just want to make how they train pilots. Okay, one last question, and we can then have some type of just a oral interaction with you guys. Sorry, I apologize. My last question is, we're all going to work collaboratively together, right? But how are we going to work together to make sure that the flight patterns are more equitably distributed and ensure that that's the case? No matter what happens, if we are able to downsize the airport, there does need to be fairness. So I think we've all agreed we're going to work together and try to make the table, see if that happens. But any additional thoughts on that, and then maybe disclosing to, how are we going to work together, and how can we work together to make sure that this area is healthy and safe for everybody. So anyone wants to send a little
So again, I'm very pleased Congressman Waxman is here, and he carries a huge amount of weight in Washington, D.C. I'm very glad that he said he'll engage with the FAA, and that's really terrific, and I really appreciate you doing that. And so I will do everything I can that's not preempted on this issue. And, something to sort of think about, we do have the science on our side, right? I mean, there are studies that show that at general aviation airports, they've detected higher concentrations of blood lead among the children and adults. The Centers for Disease Control has come out and said there is no safe level of blood lead. We know from the studies by the AQMD, by UCLA, that folks living close to the airport are breathing in higher amounts of ultrafine particles. So we've got the information, we have the studies. So usually in government, when you do have the facts and the truth, usually you will prevail. And I look forward to working with Councilmember-elect Mike Bonden and Congressmember Waxman to find a good solution to this issue. But again, to me, the first step starts with the Santa Monica City Council not renewing that lease in 2015.
It's really a twofold strategy. As I said, I don't think that the two tactics that the candidates for city attorney, and Mike talked about are mutually exclusive. I think it's really important. Who here in this room lives in Santa Monica? Excellent. So I presume the rest of you then live in Los Angeles. Those of you who live in LA, you need to reach out to your friends in Santa Monica and get them to stand with us on this issue. They're not feeling the same impacts we are. But the people most of them are not feeling to the same extent that folks immediately east of this airport are, and are not hearing the same airport noise as the folks who live along Rose Avenue are. We need to engage our neighbors in Santa Monica, to have them talk to their elected officials on the Santa Monica City Council, to urge them not to renew the lease. But I'll be honest, that is not a tactic that I think is going to be at all successful. If the lease agreement continues, if this is extended past 2015, I don't think that Santa Monica city officials are going to, just because they're nice and because they want to be neighborly, going to start putting flights over their own community instead of ours. I just don't see that happening. It's just not going to be smart politics for the people on the Santa Monica City Council. That is going to take a more aggressive tactic. That is probably going to take legal action. And I'm committed to pursuing both tracks. If we can get the lease agreement to expire, then the problem effectively goes away. But if that isn't going to work, then I think we need to take the more aggressive tactic.
Well, I'm pleased that there are people here from Santa Monica as well as LA, and I don't think the people that are here from Santa Monica are happy about the situation any more than you are. There are 3 runways for departure, and one of them impacts Venice, and 2 of them impact Santa Monica. And it's difficult to decide how to direct the traffic, and I'm not even sure it's up to Santa Monica to make that decision, because I've always thought it's up to the FAA. We've got to try to work together to deal with the impact in both areas. But as we go to 2015, if my constituents in Santa Monica and LA look at the situation and want this airport closed, I will fight with you to do that. This is not I don't want anybody to be mistaken. This is not LA versus Santa Monica. This has got to be LA and Santa Monica trying to protect everybody in this area. Thank you.
If there are any reporters in the room, that's your lead, by the way.
Hold on, one more question. It must be a hot one. Okay. Councilmember-elect, the Fly Neighborly program can be fought now. Will you do it? Fought now. The Fly Neighborly program can be fought now.
Yeah, I think we work on a legal strategy to pursue that, and I think that we see how the Santa Monica City Council is doing on the lease agreement. I think we keep both options open, and we sit and we talk to the city attorney and figure out, in talking to the city attorney, to the state senator, to the congressman, what the best strategy is to pursue. I think you can certainly do a lot of work on the legal action without pulling the trigger if we think pulling the trigger will screw up the lease stuff. If the lease stuff isn't going, then I think we move forward on that.